Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Dunmow and welcome to another episode of the Wellness Academy podcast. On our show here at the Wellness Academy, it is my job to distill all things wellness and attempt to break down from all our different coaches, experts and guests their wisdom and knowledge so that you can apply it to your own life. Our guest today is Marcella Pedata. I know Marcella from a couple of different yoga retreats that we have taken part in over the last 12 months. She's an outstanding yoga coach who really practices what she preaches, which you'll see from her many YouTube videos and some of the work that she's now doing with the Results with Lucy Instagram account and their website. We really broke down some of the amazing benefits of different types of yoga, you know, what kind of yoga might be best for you if it was something that you were looking to get into, or the benefits of the different types, and really how she tries to apply yoga to her own life. Had a really great conversation with Marcella. Bear with us if there's any technical difficulties. The internet connection wasn't phenomenal for the entire time that we were on the call together, but I had a great time talking to Chella, and I hope you guys will enjoy listening too. As always, like, share, subscribe, help the channel out however you can, and we hope you enjoy. So, Marcella, welcome to the Wellness Academy podcast. Thank you very much for taking the time out to speak to us. I know that you've just got back from a hardcore training session, and this is how you're relaxing today, talking to me on the podcast. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good to be on the show.
For people that obviously don't know who you are, I thought I'd let them know that. So the way that you and I know one another is there's a chap named Andrew Tracy, and he was the one that originally got my girlfriend and I to know sort of who you were. So he's, I guess now most famously known for being, is he fitness editor for Men's Health? I think that's his new job, isn't it?
He is one of the editors for Men's Health, for the fitness section.
And he shared, over 12 months ago now, because it's November. Wow,
God,
okay.
Yeah.
Over 12 months ago, she was sharing the Yoga with Marcella and Farm Fitness retreat that you organised and held in North Barsham in Norfolk.
That's right, yeah.
So for those people that don't know, that's east coast of England. Beautiful scenery. We proper looked out on one of the days when we went walking down the coast because it was nice weather. And that's where my girlfriend and I first met you. We did some yoga for a weekend. Your dad, the legendary Italian cook that he is, looked after us as well. And since then, we also came and did a retreat with you in a beautiful place called Monbaruzzo, an hour south-ish of Turin. So, yeah, I was really looking forward to having the chance to talk to you on the podcast, given the fact that I know you're a great yoga coach, yoga teacher, whatever you would call it.
Either or.
And I figured that we could get a great opportunity to talk to people, if nothing else, about some of the ins and outs of the benefits of yoga, because I know that a lot of people think it's a bit woo-woo and it's a bit spiritual and you have to sit in for like, do you know what I mean? But it's not that. I've experienced many benefits of yoga myself, but why don't you give us a bit of a background? How did you get into being yoga with Marcella?
So it's a bit of a random one. I went to my first yoga class and I hated it because
Good stuff.
I'm terrible saying that now, but for me, I was doing like PT like 4 or 5 times a week. And the first class I went to was so very slow, and where I was in that time of my life, I just needed something fast paced, and it was really difficult for me to sit still. It was really difficult for me to be able to switch off because I was just so what I need to do next. And I think the majority of people are probably like that working in this sort of day and age. But then I went to one which was totally different. And it was my first Vinyasa Flow class. So Vinyasa Flow is what I teach. And I realised the physical benefits to it, and that it wasn't just this spiritual sit still kind of class. It was a good combination. So for me, my first into yoga was the physical element of it, and I realized how beneficial this was for my body. Even like getting into a lunge, oh my god, the pain, because I was I was so tired. You probably, because you do your CrossFit, if you're doing gym sessions, I had no idea how tight I was from someone who does no stretches. So it was quite a long journey for me to get into it. And then one day I was just driving to where I was in sales. I was in sales for 10 years. And
Okay.
I just thought, I want to teach this. And I booked
How
a
old
plane
are you?
ticket. 10 years recently I was in sales. So
But how old are you now?
how old am I?
Yeah.
I'm nearly 28. I'll be 28 next month.
Oh wow, okay. So you literally went straight into sales then, really, when
Yeah,
you
I literally left college, went straight into sales.
okay.
And just kind of fell into sales, really. Loved the hype of it. And then I'd say about 5 years ago was when I started to really enjoy yoga. And then I think it was, God, like 3 years ago now, I decided that I was going to book a ticket to LA, and I went there for a month to become a teacher trainer.
And that was when you met Luce, who you brought to Monbruzza.
Yes, the lovely Luz.
Bless her.
Amazing. Yeah, we met on teacher training. She sat next to me on the first day. And we were
Sounds like
best
when you go
friends
to your
since.
first day of school.
It honestly was like your first day of school. It was like 25 women sat in this big circle, and we all had to introduce ourselves. And it was the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done.
So when you say that, like to begin with, you found it difficult to sit still and switch off, and then one of the things that helped get you into yoga was the kind of the opposite of that. So your yoga is called what again? Sorry, so it's Vinyasa Flow.
Vinyasa Flow, yeah.
Okay. And do you know what type of yoga it was you did for your first session that was slower and calmer and etc.?
It was a hatha yoga, and hatha can be taught fast, it can be taught slow, so it just depends on the teacher.
Okay. Because I'm thinking to myself that, yes, I imagine a lot of people would find it difficult to sit still and switch off. And whilst that doesn't mean, therefore, that person shouldn't do yoga, because there obviously are types of yoga that you can do where it's not a case of the only thing you do is sit still and switch off. I'm sure you would be talking to your members now about the benefits of being able to sit still and switch off.
That's what
How
I
has that
mean.
changed
So
for you?
it's been a long journey for me. So at first, my first into yoga was the physical benefits to the body, and how I felt good from doing an hour and a half class. And even when I first started my teacher training, I'd find it really difficult with the philosophy side, learning about the teachings of yoga. And I mean, so with the you've got the Yoga Sutras, which says, like, the first one is yoga is the calming of the fluctuations of the mind.
Okay.
But I couldn't see it at first, so it took me a long while to be able to now have a practice where I teach the spiritual side just as much as I teach the physical side. And it took me a while of getting out of my comfort zone to be able to really enjoy it. And I think it's true what they say. They say that the pose that we resist the most is the pose that we need the most. And a lot of people struggle with the Shavasana. And Shavasana is the part at the end of the class where you do sit still and you have a few moments of
Favorite
trying
bit.
to quiet the mind. Sorry?
Corpse pose for the win. Just lie down and just
Yeah.
at the end.
And a lot of people struggle with that. A lot of people, you can see when I do my Shavasanas, you see people twitching and struggling to sit still. But then in time, I think Shavasana is one of the most important poses in yoga, because especially where the world today is so fast paced, we're always waiting for Friday, we're waiting for payday, we're rushing time away to get to the next thing. That it's really important to sit still and breathe. Just focus on the breath, relax the shoulders, to just let it all out.
I know they say that one of the reasons why food, drugs, and alcohol. I know one of the reasons they say that they're such an attractive proposition for so many people, as in food, and therefore people get overweight, alcohol, and therefore people can become alcoholics or can do negative damage to themselves, or the same with drugs, is because all three of them are they're things that bring you into the now. So when you go out on a night out and you get drunk, you're not bothered about the next day. You're not bothered about the stress you had at work earlier on that day. You're in the moment, there and then, having a good time with your friends. Food brings you into the moment because you're very often really enjoying that which you're eating. And I'm not a person that's done drugs, but I've heard that that's also the case. But I've found that that's a really cool thing. If you're open to doing it, when you do a yoga session, if you focus every step of the way on just listening to your yoga instructor's voice and you allow yourself to be present, I think you get the same experience, as you can do with a lot of other exercises, of course, or exercise. But particularly, I remember when either your classes or other coaches, when they say, be grateful for the 60 minutes that you've just given yourself. If you have given yourself those 60 minutes, it is really easy to be grateful, and then it's a good feeling to finish on and go home with. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. It is about, and I try to, in with the classes that I teach, I try to remind people, like, especially when you go into poses like downward dog or child's pose, to come back to the body, come back to the breath. When your mind starts to wander, just come back to that moment. Because I find that when you are focusing on the breath, when you're focusing, okay, let me breathe in, let me breathe out, that can be a good anchor to the present moment. Just by thinking about your breath control can stop you from thinking about what's happening tomorrow, what happened yesterday, and just think about the now.
And then I know a lot of people have a negative association to like those aspects of yoga, the same way that they can attach those negative associations to meditation, because people think you have to sit for lengthy periods of time and that your mind has to be clear and you have to be this stereotypical Shaolin monk sat there in robes and stuff. But meditation is just when your mind does wander, which it always will, just bringing it back to either your body or your breath, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think especially when you first start out with meditation, it can be really hard, really difficult, because it's not something that we're really used to. But you shouldn't give yourself a hard time. Your thoughts will naturally come and naturally go. And that's why it's quite useful to listen to like guided meditations, because it just gives you a process to be able to focus. And eventually you don't have to have like an hour-long meditation practice. You could do it for like 20 minutes, and then eventually you could do it for 10 minutes. You can sometimes do like a 5-minute meditation. Even now, sometimes if I'm really busy, really stressed, I'll just take a minute. Even in the middle of the day, just take a minute to focus on my breath, to calm down somewhere quiet. And it really just helps me to just sort of come back. You can even do things like walking meditations, movement, like going for a walk in the forest and things like that. Meditation can be whatever you want to make it. It doesn't have to be sat down cross-legged. Do whatever feels comfortable to you.
One of the best like walks through a forest I've ever done was when we walked back from that beach place in
Stunning,
North.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was so cool. I still got like some of the pictures on my phone, and like the little video I did doing a burpee jumping over that huge fallen tree.
Oh, no.
And I kept all the pictures and the videos, and they're on my phone as like reminders of the great time we had. But yeah, like that was such a beautiful place to be. And I think and you hear a lot of people talking about it's important to be in nature. When it's nature like that, just walking amongst all those trees, you can't help but feel like it's very, very different to walking along whatever pavement you stride down every day. Do you know what I mean?
No, exactly. And I was reading the book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and he says on there, if you go on a walk, if you sit on a bench, you can see people that do the same walk, but they're on their phones or they're too busy chatting away. That no one actually really enjoys the walk and looks around and stops and looks at the sky, looks at the trees, the scenery. And I think that's really important to do, to be able to do that.
Have you found that? So it's interesting. I've got The Power of Now. I've never read it. Probably shouldn't shout out about that. I mean, I've read the whole book, obviously, page to page. But I do know one of the principles, for example, is something I try to live by, in that to not take the things that are in my life regularly for granted. So I've been living where I live now for 8-9 months, and I still make a conscious effort to be grateful for how beautiful the surroundings are, to take pictures of the same view over and over again, just to remind myself that that view is an amazing view. And, you know, we've got loads of sheep in the field outside now, and it's super cool. Like, we wake up to sheep every day. Our cat, loves the sheep, likes to meow at them. Not sure what he would actually do if ever we let him out and he went near the sheep. But do you find that yoga has made you capable or more capable of being in the present moment? Has that regular practice been something that's transferred into other areas of your life, do you think? Or
Yeah, 100%. Yoga was the start of my spiritual journey. And it's just like at the end of the class, so at the end of every class, which you'll know, is I'll always finish with a shavasana and a little meditation. Because it's interesting that at the start of my practice, it wasn't the part I love, whereas this is now my favorite part of the class. And just feeling the energy in the room when you see people coming to, we namaste and they come round, and it's this calmness in the air, and everybody just looks so relaxed. Everyone's got this little smile on their face, and they're all just looking around, and it takes people about 30 to 60 seconds to come back around before they start getting up, sometimes even longer. And it's just that energy, and you kind of take that energy away with you, and it's just really nice to see other people enjoying it just as much as you do. Even though I'm not really participating, I'm the one going around giving everyone massages. For me, just feeling the energy of the people, it's that calming sereneness that I even get, and I take that away from me. And now that I'm teaching full time, it's just, I feel like I'm more able to. So I'll teach in the morning, and I'll just take that energy with me throughout the day. And then I teach in the 9, and I take that energy with me. It's really lovely. I feel really lucky.
When you said that, so it's vinyasa flow that you took to because you were a person that wanted the energetic side of things. So that's the type of yoga you would recommend if someone's looking to do yoga and they're somebody that hits the gym a lot or does CrossFit or is a runner or a cyclist, or so someone that's high energy that might not automatically benefit like you from immediately being told, right, sit down and stay still type thing. Is vinyasa flows a good starting point for people like that?
Not necessarily. I would say to take as many different classes as you can, because it's the teacher, it's the environment that you're learning in, and you might find that something else resonates with you. Somebody who is really fast paced, you might go to a yin class, which is a predominantly longer stretches, you hold the poses, and it's a slower paced class. You might love that because that might be just what you need to complement the level of training you're doing. It depends on what your end goal is, really. There's so many benefits, there's so many different types of yoga that, for me, something that I'm working on now is trying to help people see that yoga can be for everyone. There's so many different layers to yoga. So it's just about finding the right class for you and the right style that you like. Whether you do a class at home, an online class, there's so many online avenues, or whether you do go to a yoga class, whether you do a 5-minute stretch of yoga in the morning, or you do an hour-long practice at night. There's just loads of different ways that you can incorporate yoga to your training.
I know that I really enjoy just 10 sun salutations. And I know that, do you know the name Kelly Starrett? Does that name ring any bells to you?
I feel really bad, but no.
No, you shouldn't. So Kelly Starrett is kind of like a bit OG in the CrossFit scene. Kelly he started San Francisco CrossFit, and at the time it was the 21st CrossFit gym to be registered, so 21. And now there's thousands of CrossFit gyms. I bet I could put a pin where I live and do a 10-mile radius and find 21 CrossFit gyms. It wouldn't be that hard. But I've been looking at like a recent stretching routine that he says he does as part of his morning routine to wake up, and he kind of looks at it as this whole if you can take care of moving your body for 10 minutes first thing in the morning before you leave the house, you're set up good to go, and it's going to be easier to move the first time you ask your body to do something. So maybe you're an athlete who hasn't always got time to warm up when it comes time to, sort of get the job done kind of thing. But if you can do 10 minutes before you leave the house, then you set yourself up. I think he calls it his spin up. So you can spin up faster than if you just roll out of bed and sit with your cup of coffee and, contemplate the day in a stationary way.
No, 100%. I've just done a blog for Farm Fitness for morning mobility, a morning routine that you can do.
Okay.
But I 100% agree. Just taking 5-10 minutes in the morning, even while you put the kettle on, you can do it in the kitchen. There's no set place where you have to do yoga. So you can literally do it anywhere. You can do it before you even leave the bed.
That's a good point. I like that. Child's pose would be like happy baby even would work really well lying in bed.
Yeah, I did a post a little while ago with a yoga routine you can do without even leaving your bed. So you can just literally wake up, you can stretch, and then you're done.
What I'll have to do when we finish this is I will get you to send me some of these things, and I can put it in the show notes so that people can just head straight to it kind of thing. Speaking of you trying to show more people that yoga is for everybody, that's a really cool segue. It's actually making me skip a couple of things that I said, but I like the natural, in to the net. One of the things I was going to talk to you about. So I would love to think that there are going to be people listening to this podcast that are from around the world that don't know what your accent is. So they don't know that you're an Essex girl through and through, right? And that's what your accent is. But those people, therefore, even less so, will have any clue, I imagine, about England's affinity with reality TV shows. Reality TV shows such as, and I'm assuming Lucy is from The Only Way is Essex. Or was she made in Chelsea? Which one was she on?
She was on The Only Way is Essex.
Okay, so Lucy, as in Lucy Mecklenburg. Only Way is Essex is not a TV show that I watched, I will be honest. My reality TV kind of extends at best to I'm a Celebrity, just because Ant and Dec are flipping awesome.
I was on The Only Way is Essex.
Right.
One episode. I was teaching yoga on there.
Brilliant. That's not a surprise. But you've been working, so Lucy, I'm kind of assuming the reason why Lucy has her Results with Lucy Instagram and product and so on is because she's obviously in great shape. And I'm assuming that she must work very hard to remain in good shape. And she has she's got a program, Results with Lucy, right?
Yeah.
And Results with Lucy is, again, I'm assuming, an online thing, website, personal training, etc., etc.
That's right. Yes. So it's a platform where you can subscribe to, and on a monthly basis, and then you have access to all different hundreds of recipes, whether you're vegan, pescatarian, vegetarian, or just a regular meat eater. There's recipes on there. There's different workouts, and she's now launched, which I've been a part of, their Results with Bump, so their pregnancy range with different workouts. Okay. Yeah. So it's a great platform for somebody who doesn't have the time to go to a gym, because they've got workouts on there from, I think, 20 minutes to 30 minutes.
So just out of curiosity, the Results with Bump thing, is that during pregnancy and post-pregnancy? Is it one or the other? How does that work?
So there's a postnatal program on there and a prenatal program. So there'll be the Results with Bump is for when you're pregnant. And they've got stuff for trimester 1, trimester 2, and trimester 3, because I think there's a big hype about working out through pregnancy, and a lot of women are afraid to work out through pregnancy. So there's all different workouts on there that you can do.
I mean, I have no idea if I even want a baby. Neither does my girlfriend, but one of my good friends is a new father. His baby is 4 weeks old, and my girlfriend's friends, a lot of them have babies, and just being around that thing, you hear about the uncertainty around how you get back into training when you've had a baby. So I think like anyone that's got a program that specifically educates people, women specifically, of course, on how to train again as soon as is safely possible once you've had a baby is definitely a good thing. The reason we got onto that, of course, is that you've been doing yoga for the Results of Lucy program.
Yep. So I've just finished actually. We've been filming so much new content for the site, and I've just done a 30-day program for the yoga as well as videos for the prenatal program.
And that's really cool. I noticed you did
Yeah.
some follow along stuff. Like I think I probably across like being on Instagram even got invited to come and do a follow at home yoga class with Marcella, and I was like, done one with her in person, don't you know? But how's that been? Has that been it's a new experience for you, right?
Yeah, it's been great. So it's a live class. So at first, when I first started, I was like, please don't tell me how many people are watching this at home because I'm really nervous. But yeah, now yeah, it's great. It's so great. So I normally have Cecilia. She's there. She does like all the filming. She's one of the trainers and one of the people who are a part of Results of Lucy. One of the people that run it. But yeah, so it's just good fun. It's so lovely to be able to do yoga and help to teach a wider audience, really, for the people who can't come to my class.
Cool.
And just trying to do it again, yoga for everyone. It's yoga isn't about trying to get your leg up in the air behind your head or whatever. Yoga can be anything. I mean, there's loads of different sort of niches to yoga that people put out. So you've got all like yoga for runners, yoga for athletes. There's all different streams to it, and I think the good thing about the internet and things like YouTube is you can find any length of video that suits you. So I mean, on my YouTube channel, I do them from a 5-minute meditation video that you can do of mindfulness up to a 40-minute yoga practice you can do. So I think if you are interested in exploring yoga, I mean, there's a lot more studies now showing the different benefits, particularly for athletes. So if you are looking at exploring it, there's no harm in having a look around and trying out all different kinds of classes and things, whether it's online or actually in a studio, to see what works for you.
Have you ever thought about so on the more extreme side of yoga, you've got, I don't know whether or not you're supposed to pronounce it Vikram yoga or that V is a B and it's Bikram yoga, or if
Bikram yoga, yeah. I've been to a Bikram yoga class.
I've not been to a Bikram yoga class, but I've been to several hot pod yoga classes. I think Bikram yoga gets hotter than a hot pod does, but I've done a hot pod yoga class that the class was full, and that was hot, big time. Have you thought about doing anything like that? Like, I don't mean you doing the classes. Would Yoga with Marcella ever do a hot pod or a Bikram yoga class?
Yeah, well, so hot pod and Bikram, I'm not sure about hot pod, but you can have a hot yoga class where it's yoga in a heated room and it's your style of yoga, which I do teach at the moment as well. One class.
Cool.
Yeah, but Bikram yoga is Bikram style, so it's 26 poses, routine, repeated twice.
Okay.
It's very difficult. Some people, I know a lot of people who love it. For me, I prefer the creativity that you have in the yoga class, such as Vinyasa Flow.
I didn't realise that's what it was. I thought
Yeah.
Bikram yoga basically meant hot yoga. I didn't
It's a
realise
style.
yoga was a style. Okay.
Yeah, that the yoga teacher Bikram founded, and it's extremely popular, especially in America. Extremely hot room, and it's very disciplined. I actually did a class with this guru guy in
You got
America.
told off, right?
Sorry?
You got told off, right, for laughing?
I got told off big time.
Oh wow! Okay.
I was in the front of the class, and like, because you have like almost like a 5-10 second pause in between poses, and I can see you really work your body and you sweat, and it feels really good, but like in between, I'd be so hot, I'd be like, oh, like just sort of slouching to one side, and he'd come along and he'd like give me a little pat, and he'd be like up, and you like call you out, and it's full on for the 90 minutes. But it is great fitness. It's really good. A lot of people absolutely love it. I just struggled a little bit.
I don't know if it's a testament to that my fitness isn't quite suited to yoga, but a 90-minute yoga class sounds torturous. 60 minutes is good for me. Like I'm like, and then by the time
I've
you
done
get towards
90 minutes before. It can be good. It depends, and it goes by a lot quicker than what you think. If you like yoga, then 90 minutes is great. I think for me, more than anything, it was the heat that I just struggled with.
Okay, so across all the different styles of yoga, what would you say some of the obvious benefits are that unify doing a yoga practice? Like, and feel free to talk about the ones that are literally, you know, generally or genuinely so obvious that everyone should know them, because there'll be people that don't. So what are some of the obvious, I don't know, 1 to 3, 1 to 5 top benefits that somebody would get from even just incorporating a daily 10 minutes or a weekly class, or like what would you look to gain from doing yoga more often, do you think?
I think as well that people are surprised about is the strength that you gain from doing a yoga class. And again, this depends on the style that you do and the intensity that you do it. But for me, I felt more strongest. Is that the best way to write to the word is?
Oh, my strongest.
I felt my strongest.
That's the one.
When I was doing yoga as opposed to when I was doing weights in my body.
Okay.
And I think so. Yeah, so strength is a massive thing for yoga, and I think as well, looking at that core strength. When I like teach athletes in particular, a lot of them don't like. I remember when I taught my first rugby team, the first class, one of them was like, "Don't mind me if I fall asleep," and he was sweating buckets by the end of it, and that was just a very like stretch based flow. But we did a lot of core strength because a lot of athletes don't necessarily work the core, and we get into those deeper layers of the core through yoga. It sort of taps into those muscles that you wouldn't necessarily work. A lot of ab exercises tend to go to the superficial muscles that sit on top, but it's about getting into those deeper layers. Another thing as well is that flexibility, stretching out the muscles. A lot of people skip the stretch.
Why would you say that, like, why would you say flexibility is so important? Because flexibility is certainly less kind of quote unquote, it's less sexy than having abs, or it's less sexy than big quads or like the visible muscles that people want. But I mean, I'm a firm believer in having great flexibility and mobility. I know what, I'm just curious to hear it from a yoga coach's point of view. Like what would be your, someone says, oh, Cello, I don't care about the stretching. What would you like? You know what I mean? If you're gonna tell them off in an educate them kind of fashion, what would you say about flexibility?
Well, I don't see why you could only have one or the other. You can be really strong and have improved flexibility and mobility in the body, and it helps you with things like preventing injury. To have more sort of movement around the joints. And movement in the muscles, so that it can enhance and improve your athletic practice, whatever that might be for you. So it's just a complement. You can use it to complement your workout, whatever that is. So it's not a case of having one or the other. And even in my yoga classes, first we always work on the strength and then we work on the flexibility. So it's a combination of the two always.
I think it was from a bloke's point of view, it's one of the worst ones to be told you're doing. But I remember goddess pose.
Yeah.
it's not one to make you feel very masculine, or at least it didn't leave me feeling very masculine. Particularly when both of the yoga retreats I've been to, those two in particular, male attendance was low. Particularly the first one, I'm there with 13 other women. And myself in the class being right, ladies, we're doing goddess pose, and I'm like, Chella, there's a guy in the background. Sorry, Dan. Yeah, men and women, we're doing goddess pose now. But that is definitely one that works muscles that I would not you don't do normally, like that wider based stance and coming up onto your tiptoes. And you did that
Yeah.
one in Italy that I think you called it like Oompa Loompa one. Do you remember?
Yes, the
That was hard.
that was hard, and I think any other yoga teachers listening are probably thinking, "What in the world is an
No,
Oompa
imagine someone
Loompa?"
trying to YouTube that, like YouTube Oompa Loompa yoga pose. They're gonna get the weirdest search results ever. But
Yeah, but I think because with my classes, so you have like, I mean, the thing is, yoga was founded however many years ago, but it was made by like these Indian, like young Indian men who were extremely flexible and could get themselves in all these crazy positions. And nowadays, studies show that not all of the poses that were initially taught the way they were taught are necessarily good for the body now. So it's about incorporating newfound studies into our old age yoga poses. So that's why I'm always learning to try and think, okay, how can somebody get the best from this pose? So you'll take a pose like goddess pose, which is great for the body, and then you can intensify it by changing the movement, which is where we do the Oompa Loompas. And people are probably thinking, what in the
basically, knee
world?
raises. You're in a
Yeah,
wide
it's knee
squat
raises.
stance,
Like,
and you sort of you put your forearm on one knee, and there was sort of almost one-legged crunch from a squat position, wasn't it?
yeah, so
Like,
you're
right.
overloading one of the muscles in the support. You're overloading the muscles in the supporting leg, creating muscle fatigue, which in turn creates that strength in the muscles. And then you're also focusing on your core because you're working on that balance. You're working on that crunch. You're working the hip flexor by lifting the knee. So it's a whole hybrid movement of
Yeah.
everything going on. So it's just about trying to get the most out of every pose. So yeah, we have
Even
some
if
fun
it's
in
not
my
the best name.
classes. Sorry?
Even if it's not the best name.
No, I just like to, it just makes the people laugh. It's no, you can't take things too seriously. And a lot of the time in a yoga class, you'll find that people have got these very serious faces and they're tensing, they're forgetting to breathe because they're concentrating so much, which is why I like to put in some Oompa Loompas just to lighten the mood a little bit.
Lightening the mood is you only need to make a slight mistake and bring the Essex accent in when you're doing your yoga voice, and that just used to lighten the mood for us. So funny. We tell everybody about that. Anytime we talk about coming and doing the yoga retreats with you, it always gets brought up that you've got this beautiful yoga voice, very calm, very serene. But if you make a mistake, your natural Essex accent comes out. It's just so funny.
I
So
hope
funny.
that's not the only thing you talk about from my
Yeah,
retreats.
yeah,
Like you talk
anything,
about the
anything. Yeah,
amazing
no,
yoga
don't mention any
classes,
yoga.
the great food.
Um, so you mentioned about breathing then, about how in a yoga class, particularly when you're holding certain poses that can be difficult, building strength, and you're essentially it's. I find it interesting how lots of things are very similar to one another, but just named differently. So calisthenics, aka body weight holds, is a significant part of a yoga class. And it can be easy to hold your breath and forget to breathe.
Mm.
In terms of breath practice, is there anything specific that you do in your yoga class?
So in my yoga class, I tend to keep the breathing element quite simple because unless you are an experienced yogi, trying to remember all these different breathing techniques and remembering and trying to do the poses can be quite difficult. So I think as long as you can remember to breathe, that's a big thing. And trying to breathe more deep. I think I always start with connecting with the breath at every class. And my big thing is,
What does that mean to somebody? If someone doesn't know what that means, explain what, because I know what that means, but at the same time, it sounds less specific if you've not done it. So what does connecting
yeah.
with the breath mean?
So if you were to just close your eyes and just to sit there, focus on your breathing. Are you breathing shallow? A lot of the time, we're taking short, shallow sips of breath
Yeah.
without even realizing because unless you are in like that kind of practice where the breath is a big thing, nobody really thinks about how they're breathing. So to be able to just remind yourself and go into your body and think, okay, how am I breathing? And I'll normally say, notice the breath. Are you taking shallow sips? Can you take a nice deep breath in? And then when you tell someone to take a deep breath in, normally what they do is they lift the shoulders. They try and lift the chest. They bring the breath into the chest. But can you breathe into the belly? So you feel the belly rise, and then you start to use the diaphragm to help you with your breathing, which starts to aid in things like the digestion, because you're given, as the diaphragm expands near the stomach, so it starts to massage the stomach. And then it starts to also, when you activate the diaphragm breathing, you enter the parasympathetic nervous system. So that state of relax, rest and digest.
This is the kind of thing that someone could do before bed, isn't it? Like lying in bed, literally the 5 minutes as you, like, let's say you read before bed, you've put your book down. Let's say your partner reads before bed and they've just turned the light off. You've said goodnight to one another, or you obviously, I'm going from I live with my girlfriend and we go to sleep at the same time type mindset there, but you've just finished, you've turned Netflix off, you've binge watched your fourth episode in a row that you didn't mean to, but to calm your body down and get it into a relaxed state, literally just sitting there, breathing in for 4, holding for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, but concentrating on getting that air into your belly could be something that brings you into a calm state before sleep, isn't it?
Yeah, it does, and it brings me back to what I said earlier as well. When we focus on the breath, we're connected to the here and now. So when we connect into the present moment, we're no longer worrying about the future. We're no longer anxious. We're no longer worrying about the past. We're here, we're in the moment, and it just helps your mind calm down. And again, when we go into that sort of nervous system, just helps you to rest, and your body, your muscles start to relax, especially the exhale, because the exhale is the breath of relaxation.
I hear that 7 is the magic number. That's what I like. So 7 seconds on your exhale. Be interesting, I think, for anybody sitting at home listening to try and see how long an exhale they can manage. I know we talked about Andrew Tracy and being involved in men's health now. They had a brief bit in Men's Health the other week about how to do a simple CO2 tolerance test, and it was a deep breath in through your nose, breathe out through your nose, hold your nose, and see how long it is before you need to breathe again, which is a really good judge of how tolerant to carbon dioxide you are. But it fits in with any exercise practice. Like when you're holding a yoga pose, if you're told to breathe in and breathe out, I always struggle to keep up with my instructor in any class. Like I'm always kind of a bit slower to concentrate on my breath because I don't know whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to not count more than 5 in a yoga class, but when you do get more advanced, then you can count for longer. But purely because when you start putting the pressure to breathe out for 7, because breathing out for 7 is hard, especially if you're new to that.
I'm just thinking of sitting down. That's not in it. Like, yes, I get, yeah.
Yeah, so breathing out, like, rather than putting a number to it, simply exhale until you can't exhale, until the whole breath is gone, and then breathe in. So there's no pressure as to, oh my God, I've got to count to 5 or I've got to count to 7. Just let go of the breath. I mean, it goes back to the principle of yoga is for everybody, trying to take some of that pressure off of it. And I think when within a yoga class, not every teacher gives a breathing cue, for the simple reason that it's a panic for the person doing it, because, oh my God, I've got an inhale, oh my God, I've got an exhale.
Yeah.
But I do cue it for the simple reason that people forget to breathe. So it's just about little gentle reminders. But again, there's no pressure. I always say in a yoga class, this is your time on the mat. Lead with your body. Don't lead with your ego. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Do what feels good for you, because you've only got 60 minutes on your mat. So what can you do to get the best out of these 60 minutes? Do you need to skip a vinyasa? Skip it. Go straight to downward dog. There's no pressure. You're not in an Olympics for yoga. You're in a yoga class.
The one that resonated with me is like, and that, because it's funny you talk about the ego, and it makes me think about how often like ego encroaches into the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Well, I remember it might have been you said that, like, or it might have been a meme or something I'd heard, but like no one wins a race in yoga. Like it's not a race. And I remember thinking to myself, and I think someone must have said that in a yoga class. I bet it was you. It must have been you in Italy. Must have been.
More than likely.
But like, I feel like I heard it in a yoga class and then went, oh yeah.
I should probably just
It
calm
is
down
because,
and just to have a good time rather than.
especially with athletes, because like if I teach a sports-based class, I'll say to them, and so a lot of these athletes have really strong hamstrings, shall I say, so they're quite stable, so there's not as much range of movement in them. So I introduce yoga blocks. They'll be looking, I'll say, bring your hands onto your yoga blocks in a forward fold. And yoga blocks are a good way. I always say when you start out in yoga, they're your best friends, because if you can't touch your toes, use your blocks as an extension of your arms. But they'll be looking around the class. He's not using his yoga blocks. No, I'm not going to use mine. And they'll be like trying to push themselves down. But
And then
that's
they're
not
not
helping
breathing.
anyone. It's not a competition. And I think especially if you go from a competitive mindset from sports, you bring that with you into yoga, and it's really important to leave that outside. This is your time to almost relax and just enjoy it.
So obviously I've known, as we were saying earlier, we've known one another for over a year now. And one of the things so not just that Caroline and I, my partner, discussed about your yoga, your accent, but we've also been able to discuss with one another that I think you embody what a yoga teacher is, what a yoga teacher does. You're in great shape. You clearly take care of yourself. We're not going to put the video on of this podcast today, but I'm looking at you in your Farm Fitness t-shirt, and I know how hard Farm Fitness is because I've been and done them with Tom and trained with Andy and stuff. Is there anything else outside of yoga that you think is an important part of how you value taking care of yourself physically? Like, so physical wellness as a concept, like what else do you do?
Yeah, so particularly from the summertime, I've really taken a different approach on my fitness levels. I think because before the summer, I was also working as well as teaching, and it was a lot to try, and I think I just was on burnout, and it was really difficult for me. So I made the decision in the summertime to leave my work and just do yoga. And it's been the best thing I ever did, because I've been able to take care of myself. One, a big thing for me is my diet. I'm actually, for the last 2 months, been trying to be more plant-based.
Okay.
So I think my diet's been a big thing, what I try to work on. I'm really conscious of where my food is sourced, what I'm eating, what I'm putting into my body. And as well, I haven't been able to go to a class since I've been back, because I was away for the summer, but I was doing a lot of spinning. And when I was about to go to my first spin class, I was dreading it. And then now I absolutely love it, and I'm desperate to go back to another class. But and I try to do weights twice a week, and then I tend to go for walks. And I do a lot of yoga, and now I'm teaching bar too, so I do bar as well.
Bar?
Yeah, bar is like a ballet fitness. It's a hybrid of ballet, yoga, and Pilates.
I always find it dead interesting to hear about all these little, like, I forget the actual principle now, but basically I know that a guy I follow, Tim Ferriss, would talk about how the first American beer, someone sat there and went, okay, we're going to do a niche. So we're not going to do another beer because we're going to compete with these guys that have already got that area covered. So we're going to do a light beer. And then someone went, oh, okay, well, we're going to do a European beer. And then someone else went, oh, we're going to do a European light beer. And there's basically a way to be a niche of a niche of a niche if you want. Yeah. And like, that's just really funny because it's a hybrid of ballet, Pilates, and fitness. That's a new for you. Like,
it's really good though. Honestly, I absolutely love it. I wasn't too sure when I first went to it, but now I'm teaching it, so that's how much I like it. I just think I guess for me, I'm just learning to do the things that I find enjoyable with fitness. I think a lot of the time we put too much pressure on the end result almost, that we forget to do things that we like.
Yeah. And weirdly enough, a byproduct of and doing stuff that you enjoy will mean you do it more often, which means the end product sort of takes care of itself.
No, 100%. So I do things in the week that I get enjoyment out of. And I won't do anything that I dislike, like fitness wise. I've only just started really being able to enjoy weights again. But yeah, so I think as long as you enjoy it.
From like a mental wellness perspective, you're obviously doing something that we discussed takes care of a lot of, like, you know, you talked about how when you coach in the morning you bring away that energy and it can help propel you through the day. Are there any other practices that you follow, or does yoga pretty much cover you taking care of your head?
So for me, I have most mornings I'm doing something where I've got something planned. So I have a morning for me, which is my Thursdays, whereby I have my own routine. So it's the only day of the week I won't have an alarm. And I let my body wake up naturally. And I'll have like a little bit of meditation in the bed. So before I've even left my bed, I'll just have a little bit of mindfulness, and then I'll go to the gym. Then I'll come back, I'll have a coffee, and then I'll start my day. By
talking to wonderful human beings such as myself. Cool. So you have had a lot going on. Like we've discussed, you've been doing plenty lately. If anybody in and around where you live wants to get involved with everything that you're doing, where's the best place for people to find you?
I spend a lot of time at Vision Fitness in Henham. I do a lot of classes there, and I'm going to be doing more classes there come January. Okay. Spend a lot of time in Great Dunmow, and you can always find me on YouTube as well.
YouTube is Yoga with Marcella, right?
That's right, and on Results of Lucy.
Cool. Okay, so we'll wrap it up there, Marcella. Thanks again for taking the time out to talk with us.
Pleasure for having me.
The best place I would say as well, people to find you, check you out on Instagram, right? So yes. I know that the follow at home classes always get posted there. And again, you know, if anyone's interested in taking up yoga, I'm sure there'll be a way in the future. If we get a fair few requests, maybe we can even get some of those videos posted to the Wellness Academy website, or we can see what we can do to get you helping our guys out as well.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Cheers, Marcella. Take care.
Thanks so much. Bye.
This is Dan Ball from Wellness Academy. I really hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now. You'll find a link on the episode notes. Just tap or swipe over the cover art. You'll also see some offers from our sponsor, Lichfield Apart Hotel. Find them at lichfieldaparthotel.com, and we hope you'll support our show by supporting them. If you like what you've heard, we'd love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe. Another way to support us is to answer a short survey at yourwellnessacademy.co.uk/survey and tell us what wellness topics you'd like to hear about. I'm your host, Dan Ball. Our producer is Scott Towns, created by our executive producer, Ben Heathcote for Wellness Academy.